Hi everyone, Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today's guest on the show is Ameena Falchetto. Ameena is a very interesting individual. She's a serial entrepreneur in both the online and offline world. She currently runs a business of helping solopreneurs and businesses, small businesses with marketing and brand visualization. She just has a wealth of knowledge and just a fun person to talk with. We talk a bit about her background. We talk about branding and marketing, but we also spend some time talking about social media, the problems, excuse me, with the noise with social media. She recently did about a 3.5-week blackout where she completely cut herself off from all social media, and we talk about that and the effect that that had on her business. So join me and watch the interview with Ameena. Also, don't forget to go over to our website, www.successfulwomentalk.com. Join the community, and we'll see you on the other side of the interview. Hi everyone, this is Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk, and I am really excited to be here today. I say that every time, but I'm super excited today. We have a special guest, Ameena Falchetto. Ameena is a serial entrepreneur. She has a wealth of experience in both the offline and online business world. She's brilliant with marketing and brand visualization. So we're going to talk to her a little bit about her background. We're going to talk about branding, and then we're going to get into the noise and distraction caused by, social media. So we're going to talk about that a bit. So everyone, say hi to Ameena.
Hey, Sheila.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I always say everyone say hi like I have an audience sitting here with me. So I really don't. It's just me, but I want everyone to say hi to you.
That's so cool. I love it. I'm really happy to be here.
And thank you. And I just should mention everyone, no, we're going to be jealous. Ameena, I told her before we started, she's beautiful. She has a great accent, and she's in France. That's where I'm in Texas. That's where we all want to be, right?
I'd love to go to Texas. I've never been before.
Now you have an excuse to come visit me.
Yes, I will.
Well, terrific. Well, let's start by, let me ask you the first question I ask everybody, which is, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got started in business.
Okay, well, long story short, I'm half English, half Egyptian. I happen to be born in Dubai, but hence the accent. I went to school and university in the UK. I've had a very varied sort of educational background where I went to art school and then I went on and studied history of modern art and then decided that I wanted to do a creative business subject. So I ended up doing a master's in marketing. And I went back to Dubai and found myself in the corporate world, and I kept thinking my problem was with the companies I worked for, so I kept changing companies. And then I realized I really wasn't cut out at all for the corporate world, and it was when I met John, who's now my husband, who made me realize that the problem wasn't the jobs, it wasn't the companies I was working for, it wasn't the business or the managers, it was me, and I needed to go out and do my own thing. So I was 26 when I handed in my resignation to my boss, and they were like, well, which company are you leaving to? And I'm like, I'm not going to work for anyone. I'm going to work for myself. And that's when I set up my first marketing consultancy, a small agency in Dubai. And then just fast forward, things kind of exploded. I was working for small businesses, I was working with multinationals like Deloitte, and I was also helping John with his business. He had an outdoor coaching company. And then in 2008, we decided to set up our own company, another company, which was a industrial training company for ropes and construction company and police government departments and stuff like that. It was a really exciting thing. Very hard for a woman in the Middle East to be talking safety and with construction site managers and things like that. But it was a very successful business very quickly. And then we decided that we didn't want to live in the Middle East anymore, want to have kids, and came to France because there are worse places in the world to be. And I was a full-time mom for a year, and then decided I needed to get back into doing something, but to be able to maintain that balance about being able to be with my daughter as much as possible, but still work and do the marketing that I used to do in the past, but to make sure I could do it within my terms and my boundaries. And so I sort of looked online and thought, let's start doing it online. And I started to do that. And it was really quite an interesting, eye-opening experience.
That's interesting. How hard was it for you to go work from corporate America and go, okay, I'm just going to do this myself? I mean, was it easier because were you married at that time? I know you had met John. But
no, I wasn't. Now, for me, it was quite simple. I knew the market. I had lots of contacts. I had a lot of people who wanted to hire me. And I said, well, actually, let's figure out a way to work together. But I don't want to be only working for you. And that's just the way it happened. And it was kind of scary. But I think looking back, I was really ruthless. I was on my own. At the time, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I didn't have any real responsibilities. It was just me. Could work any minute, as much or as little as I wanted to. But I've shared the story in the past where it's actually quite a scary process because it becomes really lonely, because a lot of my friends at the time were climbing the corporate ladder and they were looking at me like I was totally, totally nuts. Like, what do you mean you're doing this by yourself? You need a team, you need to hire people, you need to have staff. And I was like, not yet, I'm enjoying this. And I had a bunch of freelancers around me and it was really great.
Yeah. And it is, I guess you'll find that those staff members come in time if you need them. But if you don't, I mean, there's a nice thing about virtual assistants, and we live in the virtual world now, but I like that you kind of bucked that. You said, I don't have to have that. I don't have to work in corporate America. And I like that you said when you left your company, they go, well, what company are you going to go to work for? That's just assumed. It's just assumed you have to go to work for somebody else. But so I guess in you knew you had the strength. You knew you had those skill sets. And you just said, okay, I'm not going to let fear keep me back. And you just did it.
Yeah, exactly. I knew if I didn't do it then, I probably never would have done it. I know that I would have just fallen into, another company, probably had an awesome manager, just climbed that ladder, and then it would get to the point it's like, oh, this is too comfortable. Whereas at the time it was kind of exciting. Like, I was making good money, but then when I left the company I was working for and set up my own business, I actually made more money in the first 3 months than I'd ever have made on a salary. So that really, I don't know whether I got lucky or I just planned my exit really well, but it was really, really fun. But then, like with everything, you have your ups and downs, you have the scary months, but it was just those experiences, it's the ups and the downs that make a really rich experience.
I love that. And let me ask, so your real strength, and I know when you went to university, you studied marketing. So was that your love? I mean, you knew you wanted to help smaller businesses with marketing, and I know you do a big thing with brand visualization. So let's talk a bit about that.
For me, is that I love marketing. I mean, really, I'm a fantastic consumer as well. I like shopping. I love getting great deals. I love clever campaigns. Just now, actually, I went to the mailbox and picked up like a whole stack of the publicity, all the catalogs they send out. And everyone around here, they have like no publicity on their post boxes, so nobody can like put those flyers in. But I get them because I just love poring over that kind of stuff. I'm such a geek. But for me, it's like I know how to help people, and it's kind of addictive when I've been helping people in the past and I've seen their income and their profits like double overnight, and by not doing any tricks, just making these tweaks and changes, and it's really it's exciting. And for me, it's like I've done it for myself, I've done it for my own businesses, but that wasn't enough, which is why I go out there and I help other small businesses.
Okay, everyone, so you can see we've kind of changed backgrounds. Let me just explain a little bit. Ameena works at home with her husband, John. He has a business. She has a business. He's a life coach, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And they share an office, and he's been out of town, had some technical issues. And if you ever get someone on the line to help you with your technical issues, you will go to any means not to get off the line. So we just moved spaces to give him some privacy, to give Ameena a little bit of a chance. So I'm excited that we did, because check out that background. Those are articles that I love original art. And I asked Ameena about those, and those are articles that her husband actually wrote that are in the newspaper. So let's pick back up, Ameena, and this is another thing. And I told you not to worry about it. This is what being at home, and we just do this casual conversation, right? If your 2.5-year-old comes in, it's only going to make it better.
Yeah, and the cat and the dog.
I love it. I love it. This is what being and running a real business is all about. Okay, so let's pick back up. We talked about you love marketing, and you're the geek that accepts all of those things into your mailbox. But I want to say something real quickly. I wish here in America I could put something on my mailbox that says, do not deliver me all that crap, because there's tons of stuff that we get. I like the stuff I solicit that I want, but there's so many things that I don't. So I love that you let everybody deliver that to your mailbox.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I think it's always really funny as well, because it's usually businesses that, they're big FMCG, normally supermarkets and things like that, or furniture stores. And I just look at it, and even though it's in French and my French isn't perfect, I still look at it and think, I can't believe people fall for those promotions.
Well, let me ask you this, because we were talking about, you said you like to look at that, and you have found that with your customers, it's not big things that you're changing. It's usually small things that you're tweaking. So are you talking like online tweaking, offline tweaking, branding and packaging? Give me a little bit of an idea on what you were talking about there.
Well, very often, I mean, one thing is that I always struggle with being called a marketing consultant or a coach and things like that, and confining myself to marketing. But because obviously I've worked in a multiple sort of different range of industries, from, training, from products. I used to market cosmetics, kids toys, fitness. There's been a lot of different industries I've worked in. And for me, the one thing that I'm really interested in is just like how brands go together, and how you need to have your business model clear before you start putting marketing on it. And 9 times out of 10, I think the biggest challenge I think people have online, and I get these emails all the time, is people say to me, it's like, I really need help with marketing. And I say, well, hit me. What are you struggling with? And they come back and I'm like, oh, you don't need marketing. You need a business. Like, you need to have a business, an idea, because a business has to make money. It has to have a plan. You need to know what you're doing, why, and who you're serving. Only then can you apply marketing to it. And a lot of people don't really understand that. And that happens offline and online. But I do see it sort of kind of amplified more so online. So for me, marketing is a bit limiting, because I do address, the whole business. Like, how are you going to make money? Like, it's all very well and good to just sprinkle some fairy dust and make your products fly. But it doesn't work like that.
Absolutely.
So what I do is generally, a bit of a tweaking of the business model, try and work out, what kind of language you're using, what you really stand for. And for me, very often, especially with my online work, because I work with solopreneurs and small business owners, it's about getting their voice and their essence across really, really clearly, because most people like to hide behind a brand name they've created or a company name because it makes them feel bigger. Whereas in fact, they're actually just muting themselves. And it's just much more exciting if you just put yourself out there and just be like, this is what I do, and really go for it. And so that's what a lot of tweaks I do.
I love that. Let me ask you this. So most of the people that you work with, are they people that have product-based businesses? Are these people that have blogs that want to sell their coaching services? What type of customers do you normally deal with, or clients?
A bit of both, actually. Coaches, I've worked with a few healers, people who do outdoor adventures, tourism, people who actually sell ready-made, like things that they've made, handmade goods, jewelry. It's a varied range of things, and people also selling services. I don't think there is any real distinction between it. When it comes to your business idea, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to market yourself and what you create, whether it's a service or a product, there isn't a huge difference in doing that.
And I love that you said you've got to bring the personal side into things, right? So what about, I often read business blogs, and they're very boring. And they, you know what I mean? They're boring, and there's no personalization to them. And because people think you have to be so formal. But I have found that I like brands that I feel that I'm dealing with a person. And even if it's a person working for a company, you still feel more of a connection. So how do you convince people to put more of their personality into it? I'll give you an example. Like for me, I was almost afraid to put myself out there doing this video show because of my Southern accent. And I found that it's not distracting to people. People actually have really been very fond of it. But I was afraid to put my personality into it. And I think that's what makes the difference.
Absolutely. And the one thing I would say is that even when you look at big, huge international brands, whenever they're on, for example, social media, they have a person in front of it. Or even, these giant perfume companies, they attach a brand ambassador to their advertising. They always personalize it somehow, because you can't connect with a logo. You can't connect with a brand name. What you do is you connect with this essence, and generally with a person. And if you're selling services, you need to see a person. You need to know who you're talking to.
Which makes all the sense in the world. You have a nice perfume or cologne, they always put an actress. You usually see an actress or an actor promoting that. Or on the Wheaties box, you have the athlete. And usually the Wheaties aren't that great, but the athlete's really cool, which sells the product.
Exactly. And it's really, really important. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at different brands, sports brands, Nike, Adidas, things like that. I mean, Nike, for example, they need their ambassadors to go out there and promote their things, because at the end of the day, if they didn't have that behind them, and also, obviously there's a huge brand, it's just a really kind of crude example. They're just a normal running shoe. That's it at the end of the day. There are probably a lot better running shoes out there, but they don't have the same branding, the same marketing, the same advertising, the same endorsements. And so it's really about connecting with a person. And so for the smaller business owner, I'm always like, well, if it really is just you and your husband, then tell people that.
I love that, because a lot of times people try to seem bigger than they are. When it's like when we first started my very first business, it was just my business partner and I, and we had like 10 different lines. Accounting, push 1. For PR, push 2. For, and there were like 10 there, but we divided them. 5 of the lines were his and 5 of the lines were mine. And it didn't really make us any bigger. It made us a little busier.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to do it though, because I do know before in one of our last businesses, we never really let on that we were only just the 2 of us, because we did have a lot of free people we used to hire and contract in to do a lot of the work. So it gave the impression that we were a lot bigger, but we weren't that transparent about the company structure, because at the time in the market, we were talking to companies with thousands of employees. And it was kind of like we left it sort of ambiguous deliberately. But, when you're going for something that's highly, highly personal and you're sort of really getting in bed with people's problems if you're coaching or things like that, you do need to be a bit more transparent about it.
Well, let me ask you this, because I hear this question out there a lot, is should I do a personal brand, like you have AmeenaFalchetto.com, or should I do a brand name? So what is your impression on that, and what kind of advice do you give people?
I always ask them, what are you going to do? What's your plan? It goes back to your business plan. What do you really want to, how do you see this company growing? Do you want to grow it and have 10 people working underneath your name, or 100 people working underneath your name, and then, then use a business name? Maybe. But if it's going to be you, yourself, and you forevermore, then just use your name. That doesn't mean you can't change it. Look at some of the biggest companies out there. There's Hoover, Dyson, all these huge companies. They're multinationals, they're household names, yet that's a person's name. So it's always like, think about it. You can use your name, and it has both options. But the whole idea of a company name, I think a lot of people are moving away from that now, because it's it's becoming more redundant, especially when you're a solopreneur or offering something specialized, but very, very personal.
You have people like Danielle Laporte, but she sort of changed, right? I think she was... She was White Hot Truth. That's right. And now she changed. I think I read something, I heard her say she was a little bit afraid of that at first, but it was like no big deal. People had already associated herself with that brand, and she easily flipped that over.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because I've seen some of the work that you do on brand visualization. So let's talk about what brand visualization is and how you find that to help your customers, clients.
Brand identity visualization is something I created, which was basically to create a visual snapshot of somebody's brand. And it was mainly individuals on their personal brand and online, because I felt that we were really kind of bombarded with stock images and photographs and these kind of glossy things, yet trying to put together those pictures, and a picture does speak 1,000 words. And so trying to see how strong your brand is, or how kind of maybe flawed it could be, this became a really interesting technique, because if I couldn't put it down coherently on one page, there's a problem.
That's a good point.
And so it was basically about tying together what really makes you you, and it's illustrating a brand story versus writing it. So quite a few I did. If I was to sit down and actually write the story in words, we're probably going to have a whole big full page full of stuff, versus one picture that people could look at and instantly connect with. And so that's really how it helps people. It helps people sort of clarify what they're all about. People don't tell me what to put in the drawings. The whole idea behind it is that I go out, look at where, their touch points, look at their business, look at them, check out their social media presence, and get a real feel for them, and look what their outward image is saying, and then depict that in an image. And I've only got it wrong once, but it was a detail, because I drew a caribou apparently instead of a moose. And it was kind of more of a technical issue in terms of I didn't realize that the antlered animal was not what I thought it was. So I had to do that. Was the only modification I've ever had to do, but that's a detail. But in terms of the story, it's always been, people are always surprised and generally quite flattered that they've realized that they've done a pretty good job.
Well, that's good. So the point in that is that you can take everything that you see online about them, or that you read about them, and if you get a true visualization of that, then they've portrayed themselves correctly, or in the eye of what the consumer would be.
Absolutely. And the other way they can use it is they can use it, most people use it on their about page to sort of give another side to their story. And the other thing they do is also they just sort of keep it on their office wall just to keep them grounded, like that's what I'm about. So whenever you get this sort of knee-jerk reaction and this great idea, like, oh, I'm going to start writing about this, or I'm going to create this product, or I'm going to do this, you look back at it and you go, no, I'm not about that.
I like that. And I listened recently to your interview with Srini Vasrao on Blogcast FM. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I knew you were doing, which is social media blackout. But you also said something, and it just triggered me, was you almost decided to create a product for your business because everybody out there was saying you should create a product. And you almost did. And then you looked at that. Why don't you tell us about that? I won't tell the story. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, it was, well, before my blackout, I was kind of running around. I'd had a lot of people saying to me they wanted to work with me and they were doing really cool stuff, and I was like excited about it. But then it always came back to the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, but when I make enough money, then we can work together, or I just need to do this, and then this is going to happen. And I was getting really kind of frustrated because I know that it was never about the money, and it's about the value. It's just that people are in this kind of age of overwhelm. They don't really know where to put their priorities, and so a few of them said, if you created a product, I would buy it from you. And I had some people saying, why don't you, do this kind of info product, this, that, write a book, and I'll buy it. And I got distracted, and I started thinking, well, yeah, maybe that's what I should be doing. And I spent like 3 weeks writing it out, mapping it down, found out the software, planned it all. And then I went on my social media blackout, where I blacked out completely. I logged off, deleted all the apps from my phone, just announced that I was gone for 3.5 weeks. And then it was a week into that I suddenly said, why on earth am I trying to do that? I'm not about that. I've never created an info product before. Yes, I've done training before. Yes, I've done, coaching, consulting. I've done project work. I've worked in big companies, small companies, but it's always been a service. And I thought, I looked at myself and I was like, why are you even trying to do this? Is this really what you want to do? And then I said, no, I don't want to do this at all. So I just scrapped the whole idea. And then I have to be true to myself. And yes, I do have a visualization. I did one for myself as well. And I look back on that. I was like, I'm not about any of those things. It's not my goal to create something that's going to serve a lot of people maybe, but probably actually help no one, because no one really uses these products, sadly. Not how they're supposed to be intended. And I think, to be honest, it's kind of, they're designed to set you up to fail. So you end up going and buying the personalized services, or attending events, or attending masterminds, which are a lot more expensive. And for me, it's about the one-on-one connection. It's about actually making things happen and making those results happen in the quickest amount of time possible. And for me, that's the reason why I said no to doing it.
Very interesting. And because I've heard both sides of that, and I think you bring up such a good point about it, because usually what happens is, what I've seen and the experience I've had as well, is you do buy those intro products and it just leads you to the next step, which I understand why they do that, because that's what a lot of people teach. But your point is why the heck go through all the work when the real work needs to be, it's the personalized work in the beginning anyways, that the person needs.
Yeah, I always think that I had a few clients, and when they told me how much they'd spent in info products over the last few years, I kind of shuddered. I was like, that's a fortune. I was like, how did they help you? They said, well, we're here now, so they didn't help. So
they sort of made me realize I needed to do what I thought I should have done in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I have a coach, I'm married to one, but it's, I always sit down with him and bounce ideas, and he keeps me accountable for my ideas, and we'll, come up with some stupid idea. He'll be like, okay, work it out, we'll talk about it in a few days' time. And ultimately, I come to the conclusion with his help that this is not what I need to be doing. And it's always important to go and ask for help. If you're sick, you go and see a doctor. It's often important to sort of get that personalized experience, because you know what? I can go on Google. I had a sore throat last week. Go on Google and I could diagnose myself with a range of miracle things. Did that make me get better? Not really. It probably would scare the crap out of me that I was about to die.
You're convinced now you have a brain tumor. It's just making your throat hurt.
Exactly. So for me, it really was about going back to my initial goal, which is to help people one-on-one. And so that's the reason why the product never happened.
I love that, and I agree. And I'm not a good example of this, because I do believe that everyone needs a coach, and I've never had a coach, and I need one. And I too see that same thing, because I have found myself learning things and buying products, and the whole point is I really need somebody to pinpoint me. I need to stop reading all the crap out there and read a piece of stuff and have somebody help me with that. It is true. And I don't know why women, especially in like product-based businesses that I'm in, I never thought about having a coach until 2 years ago when I went online and realized, wow, every basketball player has a coach. Tiger Woods has several coaches. I mean, it's very interesting. Let's talk about your social media blackout, because I met you about the time, I think you sent me an email that says, we need to connect. I'm going offline for 3.5 weeks. And I was like, really? So you did this, you went offline. Let's talk a little bit about why you did it and what you found when you got there.
The reason I did it was because I felt I was really chasing my tail, and it really was, I was becoming reactive. I was having all these ideas, no time to actually see anything through. And to be honest, I was getting I had horrible habits. I was checking my phone before I even got out of bed. You know, what is this going on Facebook? What is this on Twitter? Who's this? Blah. And I felt exhausted. I would go online, my skin would crawl. I was like, I just need a break. I need to do something. I need to work on my business. I need space. I need time. And I just couldn't get that space and time being on social media. So what I did was I just decided, that's it. I'm going to announce the blackout. It was strategic. I was like, this is from now until now. And all I'm going to do is look at my business and work on what I need to work on to help my business and help it grow. And so what I did was the first week, I took it slow. I found it kind of strange, very kind of liberating, but also very annoying. I was kind of wondering, what's everyone doing? And I just want to just have a sneak peek. And then I was like, no. And then it was at the end of the first week that I realized that the product wasn't going to happen. And then I decided that I was going to redo my website, because I always felt like the girl who turned up at the party and didn't get the memo it was black tie. And so I just, redid my site to sort of convey what I really wanted to. And really spent a lot of time looking at what I was doing. And basically, we've talked a bit already about the conclusion was that, you know, what I'm about and how, and the biggest thing is that business really is business, regardless of where it is. Everyone seems to think that because online it's different. It's not. Business is business. You know, at the end of the day, it's like we work to make money, to spend it, you know, to live. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing that, selling it in a market stall in the middle of a field, or you're doing it online. At the end of the day, what you end up doing with it is always offline. So business is business wherever you do it. And it's about realizing that online and offline really aren't that different, yet many will let you believe it is.
Yeah, you know, I find that a lot of people go, oh, how many followers do I have? And, you know, does that really matter? Because if you're not making money, I mean, it's like starting a blog or a business and not having a business plan or knowing how you're going to make money. If you're not making money but you're making friends, you really don't have a business. You have friends.
No, exactly. Some of the strongest personal brands I see online, people who really are extremely popular and real sort of positioned as being very influential people, aren't making any money, or they're really struggling because they're keeping up the whole social thing. And the way I always say is like, let's translate it into an offline experience. Imagine you have your shop. So you have a store, and that's your website or your blog. And every day you're changing the window depending on whoever you're reacting to, and you're featuring different people and whatever, depending on what your business model is. But then what happens is that people come into your store, and then you're there at the back of the place having tea and chatting to 20 people. But they're never going to buy from you, but they're your good friends. And they're all your tweets and your Facebook friends, and, you know, they're talking about everyone, and they're chatting to each other, and they're talking about how great you are and whatever. And then that's it. Then a customer comes in, they actually want to buy from you, but they're so distracted because they don't know how to get to you because you've got this buffer around you. The other thing I see is people saying, you know, let's go and take this conversation onto social media. And again, if you translate that into offline, it's like, okay, you know, go to my Facebook page. You know, I really want to chat to you, but go to my Facebook page first and like it. It's like, okay, you're sending people to the expo center down the road where there's like a gazillion, million, billions of people already there. Or Twitter, like, you know, let's condense it into the shortest sentence possible to get this conversation started. And that's like a real-time swirly, whirly, whirly board. You know, it's constantly going around. It moves so quickly. And depending on how many people you're following. And it becomes really distracting. How can you make sense of anything that's going on around you if you're constantly consuming all this information and you're engaging in this high level of social? Because you've worked offline, I've worked offline. I know that when I was working and running my business offline, I didn't have time to chat to people. It would be, let's grab dinner late, you know, like 9 p.m., let's have a late dinner together, you know, we just catch up for an hour and a half, and then, you know, the next day, work starts again. You know, it would be, maybe I'll see you at the weekend, or let's catch up for coffee during my lunch break. But it was never hours and hours of this social sharing.
But no one wants to admit that. I think everyone, all these gurus that are selling packages and products, etc., and training, I get the feeling that they're leading you to believe that you have to have these tools, and you have to use these tools, and you have to have all these people following you, or you're never going to make any money. But I don't know how you make money if you're trying to get all these people to follow you.
I think it's actually a catch-22, and I really don't think that it's. I think a lot of people now are realizing that that's not the way to do it. I mean, the number of times I get emails from people saying, I've had my blog for 3 years, I have like 5,000 followers and this and that, and now I need to monetize. And I'm like, you're not going to monetize it. Like, it's done, just let it be.
Right.
And then I get people always taking me down for that, saying, that's not true. How can you say that? I'll say, it's not. I set up a blog, I have another blog, and the goal of that was to share information. For me, it was kind of therapeutic to share my experience as a new mother in a foreign country. And that blog has awesome traffic, awesome traction. A lot of people know it. It's quite well known, but I can't make money out of it because that was never the initial goal. And it all comes back to the whole goal and the planning. And that's, people get confused.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I think I've heard lots of people, you're saying this, I've heard other people, I've heard Srinivas Rao talking about this. I know David Siteman Garland, he's changing not his model up a bit, but he went from doing a show 5 days a week to I think 2 days a week. Now he's going to 1 day a week because there's just too much noise. But what do you do for the person that's just starting out? Like, I hear the argument that it's easy for you guys to do that because now you have a large following. But how do you, like when you're starting out, like David couldn't have started out just doing maybe he could have, just doing one interview a week and getting the following that he had. So do you either plan on making that longer, it takes much longer to get the following, or, you see what I'm saying? So it seems, I've heard the argument that it's easy for you guys to say that you have a big following. So now you can back off. But what do you tell the new person starting out?
Well, you take it easy. You have to know what your goal is. Again, always goes back to your goal. Why are you doing this? What do you hope to achieve? And then you limit yourself. You set a clock. You don't, there's no reason to have Twitter or Facebook on your phone, really, because when you're out and you've got your phone with you, you should be using that to pick up the phone to call people to grow your business, not tweeting them. And think about, a specific time. Don't confuse your activity with achievement. Just because you've been busy sharing stupid things on Facebook doesn't mean you've actually achieved anything. So the best advice I think I read was somewhere, I don't know who said it now, was sort of make it 15-minute segments, for example, for Twitter, like 15 minutes after you finish everything in the morning, just before lunch, and then 15 minutes before you log off, and keep it at that. And then if you want to do it in the evenings or during your free time, you're doing it in your free time. Don't confuse it with work. Don't say, oh, I'm working, and you're just sharing stuff. And be strategic about it. And what's really interesting I found as well is that quite often reaching out by email and chatting to people is a lot more effective than actually just sending them a tweet.
Yeah.
And then once that you get on their radar, then they share your stuff, and that's how your following starts to grow organically, because if they've already got that following and they're giving you their support, that's how it grows. And it's that kind of endorsement that also helps.
Yeah, I agree. And I totally agree, because like I said, I had an offline business forever. And I found that, we grew that business by having relationships. So we went to shows. We were a wholesale business. We went to shows, and we developed relationships with our sales reps. We developed relationships with our clients, and they continued to buy from us. Our website was a static website, and we grew, to be a very successful business. And we didn't even have a social media accounts. I know they weren't that big back then, but we grew it offline. And what I try to use the tool, and I see them as tools. They're tools to help me maybe meet people, but it's not going to help me develop a relationship with someone. And I think Absolutely. That's what people need to understand. And, do I have thousands and thousands of followers? Mm-mm. And I don't know that I care about that, because the ones that are following seem to be engaged and they want to know more about what we're doing. And that's the difference.
It's about, it is the quality versus the quantity. Because I do see people out there, who were early adopters, or maybe people who might have even bought followings, because apparently you can do that. And they're following. They've got 85,000 followers and stuff like that. And I'm always curious, like, how many of those people are bots, or aren't real people? And how did you get that many people? And do you really think that they're actually listening to you? And it's very, very interesting because you can't engage with that many people face to face. So how can you think you can do that online? And again, it goes back to what you were saying about building relationships offline. Online's no different. I mean, you look at the people who are really, really successful online, and just take a look where they are in the world. They're in places in large cities. They regularly have, masterminds or conferences. They get together. Nothing can replace that human connection. Skype is awesome. It's really cool. So it enables us to chat to people across the world. But it doesn't, if I was sat next to you in your living room or in your office and you were having a cup of coffee, it'd be different dynamics. And things would happen that bit faster.
Absolutely.
And so it really is about, getting offline, talking to people in your environment, people around you, people who are going to help you. And then then the next stage is talking to people in your network who you've been building relationships with all your life, your friends, your family, colleagues, neighbors, those people you've already been working for years building a relationship with.
Right.
You never know how that's going to convert into your business. And I think that is one thing that people just kind of are missing out on hugely by thinking they must muscle it out online and they must find these people, these new people who are going to change their lives. And it doesn't work like that.
Right. I agree. And I'm glad you said that because I think it's true. And especially in like product-based businesses, furniture, decor, etc. These people are now all jumping online and starting all of these accounts and because I think they've heard that you're supposed to. And I think it's better. I don't think it's wrong to have Pinterest accounts and all those things, but I don't think that can take the replacement of building relationships and building business. Maybe it's just another means for getting your brand out there and for people seeing you, but it shouldn't take over. Like you said, being busy is not the same as being productive or creating business.
Exactly. And as much as I love all the platforms, and I have been guilty of overindulging at times, I'm very conscious of the fact that you can't create something when you're constantly consuming other people's stuff. So you need to give yourself, be honest with yourself, give yourself that space and that respect to be able to say, this is fun and I'm going to do it later. And this is really critical now. This is what's going to pay my bills. This is what's going to let me go on vacation. This is going to actually rock my world. I need to get this stuff done.
I agree.
And it's about doing it.
And what I love is that you had the guts to say it. So many people don't, and they're not, but you are. And it's probably going to help you more than it's going to hurt you.
I hope so. Thanks.
Ameena, this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you. I know it's evening over there. You have a family you have to get back to, but thank you so much for sharing your brilliance. I will link everything up in the show notes. And if someone wanted to connect with you, where would you want to send them?
Head over to my website. There's AmeenaFalchetto.com.
You sure you don't want to send them to your Facebook or Twitter? I'm just kidding.
Well, we can chat there later, but let's start off in my shop.
We will link up. We'll link up your website. Thank you for your time, and I certainly appreciate your brilliance and all that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, that's a wrap on this episode. Thank you again so much for joining me, and I ask that you go over to our website, www.successfulwomentalk.com. Join our community by signing up for the email list. This is the way that our community and show continues to grow. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next interview.